I'm Glenn McGinnis and welcome to Outburst. This week, a look back on some of the stories and streeters exploring the state of Canadian democracy today.
I have a general trust in Canadian democracy.
I think Canada's got a lot more to do to actually improve democracy in this country.
Democracy, I think it only works for the ruling class and those who are in control of the country.
One thing I'm disappointed about is the lack of proportional representation.
I don't know that the government really thinks about what I, as a personal, as a Canadian, think.
There's bigger interests that they need to please. That's just the way of things. Democracy, it's a nice theory. Wish we had it someday, eh?
I'm not really Canadian, I'm Indigenous, just to let you know.
I'm Kyla Kakfwi Scott. I'm Kasha from Northwest Territories, and I'm a founding member of Den and Nawal.
I think that this particular workshop is going to be very useful when we talk about decolonization and about nation building. This is a critical core component of all that work.
I think the recognition of Indigenous governments is really an opportunity because at the community level, people they feel more like that is their government and it's something that they're comfortable with and ready to engage in. And the more they're educated about what is the role of the Indigenous government and how does that complement and correspond with the other levels of government, I think the more there's opportunity for people to feel like they can see how the process works and they can see what their role in it is. So I think that's really important.
So I want all of our Yukon youth to own a drum, to be able to wake up every morning and drum, to be able to speak our language, and for the culture and for the people to be back to the land, for the elders to have that regular conversation with their youth day in, day out, which is non-existent at this point.
I've been dreaming about something like this to begin happening.
But it also makes it really important that as those agreements are negotiated, that they are respected by the other levels of government, that there aren't barriers to implementation, that things don't get held up in, now we have this on paper, but it's not happening in reality because we have to go back to court or we have to go back to negotiations. And so having the things that governments commit to feel real and resonant at the community level and in people's everyday lives is, I think that's true not just for Indigenous communities, but for everyone. That's really at the heart of making democracy work.
My name is Zita Cobb, and I am the innkeeper at the Fogo Island Inn. To improve democracy in Canada, we have to take back our economy. And we have to take back our economy in a way that we put communities at the center of it. And if we can get to a place where we have community-centered economies, I think we're going to have citizens that are way more engaged in the fabric of their own lives, and that's how you make a democracy. I think about democracy every day because to me it's about the level of engagement human beings have in their communities. And if people feel that no matter what they do, it doesn't change anything, and everything is owned by something or someone far, far away, what's the point? And I think we can take back our economy, and as we take back our economy, we're going to take back a sense of agency in our own lives. The strength of this country has been our very close relationship with nature, and Canadian culture has emerged out of the human interaction with nature, whether it's off the coast of Newfoundland or the coast of BC or farming in Saskatchewan. That's who we are, that's where our values were formed. And I think it's these bonds with nature that should in fact be our guide for figuring out how to build a democracy and how to build an economy that's responsible to people and to the ecology.
How can we improve Canadian democracy?
What we're doing right now, like talking with people and getting the word out there and actually, communing with everyone really to improve it.
I think greater transparency, some of the decisions that are being made. I think an opportunity for more people to be heard. I think our current system tends to steer people away from getting involved in politics. It seems almost a little bit exclusive, and a lot of people probably don't feel they have a voice, so I'd like to see that expanded.
inclusion is important for the public as a whole, but I feel as though the younger population was only included when Trudeau was elected as our Prime Minister. Well, we're doing Premier right now. Forgive me, it's Friday morning and I'm tired. However, it's important to reach out to the younger population for voting. I feel as though a lot of older people are voting, which is good, but we're worried about our future right now and they're getting older, so we're going to be the people affected by decisions made today.
More transparency, of course. I think there are still avenues in which decisions are made behind closed doors, so I think more transparency and more, I guess, limitations on executive decisions in that regard.
Allowing access to voters who maybe have a hard time getting out there, better technology in voting to allow people to do it from, the internet perhaps would improve things a bit.
By encouraging everyone to get more and more involved, not just through voting, but also just being engaged in our political system through volunteering on campaigns, for instance, or meeting with our members of parliament or provincial representatives, stuff like that. I mean, voting is very important, and we know that has a big impact on the way government works, but it's also about making sure your voice is heard every day.
Maybe focus more in schools so people get an early start on it, show them that's their right. We get all this stuff, we get roads and stuff, and this is what we have to do for it. Well, you got to vote. You get all this stuff, you got to pay back. And it's just a simple thing to do.
I think people need to be engaged at all levels, not only junior but also seniors.
I mean, my kids come and ask me, who should I vote for? Well, by that stage, they should already know what's happening.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty high level of apathy. Canadians are pretty complacent. I don't think that's necessarily the fault of society itself. I think there's various ways in which our political systems are unwelcoming to a lot of newcomers and people not used to them and not exposed to them. And I also think that maybe our current way a political party system seems sort of antiquated and a little out of date with modern sentiments. And I definitely don't think there should be parties on the local level. I think that actually can distract us a lot from particular political issues by schooling people into political camps that really shouldn't be there.
Encouraging more people to get into politics at a younger level, maybe women and from the First Nation communities and that kind of thing.
Hello, I'm Sheila Rogers, and I've been a broadcast journalist at CBC Radio for almost 4 decades now. I'm also the Chancellor of the University of Victoria, which is a great honor. And I think the most cell-altering thing that I've ever done in my life is to have been an honorary witness to the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada.
You did a good job.
I think the way we can improve democracy and move forward in real integrity is to honor the promises that we have made to Indigenous people in Canada through our history, through the treaties, but also observing the calls to action. There are 94 of them that the TRC left us with, and they are called calls to action for a reason. I've heard them called recommendations. That's not what they are. They are there to be acted upon, and they are there to make things better, to try to level the playing field so that Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in this country have the same opportunities, the same quality of education, if not the exact same education. I think it's very important that culture is respected. And I think that if we are to really walk in some kind of integrity through the land of this country, it's very, very important that we establish a much better relationship with Indigenous people. And part of that is to understand and really take into ourselves the true history of this country.
Representation is a foundation of democracy. And while 338 ridings may be represented in the House of Commons, the number of women, Indigenous peoples, and people of color remain unreflected. CPAC contributor Rhiannon Russell was in Whitehorse this past fall, and she caught up with an organization that's looking to change that.
I'm Rhiannon Russell, and I'm in Whitehorse, where a diverse group of potential municipal candidates is getting a politics lesson.
My name is Véronique Iri, and I'm the co-founder of Equal Voice Yukon and the organizer of tonight's event, So You Want to Run for Office. So we have a municipal election coming up throughout the Yukon. Next year there'll be a federal election, and then 2021 when we have a territorial election. That's going to come really quick. So we wanted to host an event to provide resources and stories and inspiration for women who might want to put their names forward for any of these elections, or who are looking for ways to volunteer, or for male allies who want to know how they can support women in politics, whether or not that's through taking up issues, volunteering, or supporting candidates. So we brought some women together, and we created some resources packs for people looking to run, and we had an event where people just shared their stories.
Having thrown my name in and doing all the campaigning, my career, even after being Commissioner of Yukon, knowing many people, I found going door to door, not many people did know me. So I kept wondering, how do you touch people? How do you get to be known?
Well, my mom's a politician. She's on city council. She also ran territorially. So politics are pretty big in my life. And I'm really interested in events that are aimed towards women, because I find it's very important to give women a voice and a role in the community, and it's just something I feel very strongly about.
I'm standing here today because of all of these teachers, the elders, the leaders in our community of the Yukon who've taught me and are my role models.
So what we want to do is encourage women and non-binary folk to put their names forward so that their voices are heard and represented in the political arena. So we're hoping to keep the gender parity we currently have on the Whitehorse Municipal Council for the upcoming election.
Canadians themselves need ways to advance their own opinions. Maybe there should be more town halls or more, I'm not going to say surveys because I don't feel that they represent much, but more personal contact, let's say, with politicians.
I wish more people were involved in voting. Democracy is a good thing, but it only works when the people are included. So more people need to get involved.
I feel a lot better than I do about U.S. democracy right now, so I guess that's a positive thing.
Right now, when we look to the south, it seems like the Canadian democratic system is actually quite strong. Of course, we need to be doing things to defend against threats to our democracy, like cyber threats and stuff like that, and foreign interference, but by and large, I feel pretty happy with our democracy.
I'm not a huge fan of the first past the post system, but or the Senate for that matter, it not being elected. But I feel pretty good about it. I mean, especially when you compare it to the American democracy, we're doing pretty good, I think.
This year, Canada's two largest cities were forced to tackle a tragic rise in gun violence on city streets. Toronto and Montreal opened the debate for a national ban on handguns. Outbursts of emotion and anger were felt right across the country on this issue. In Toronto, just south of Danforth Avenue, we caught up with three local residents who have very different opinions on the matter outside a town hall organized by two local MPs, Julie DeBruzen and Nathaniel Erskine-Smith.
My name is Evelyn Fox. I am the mother of Kissinger Gunn, who was killed outside of a club by a stray bullet in Liberty Village on September 11th, 2016.
My name's Kelly Wetter. My son was murdered at Yonge and Bloor April 13th, 2016. His name was Gabriel Nikov. He was 18, my only child. He was murdered by a complete stranger after a 10-second altercation. And he walked away, and the person walked away and circled back and unloaded 6 bullets in his back.
And we are the co-founders of Communities for Zero Violence.
My name is Marc Morelli. I'm a retired police officer from the Hamilton Police Service. Right, and now I run a company called the Canadian Gun Vault.
Okay, what is that? Can you explain briefly?
It's a lot of things. It's been it's a page for firearm enthusiasts. We're on 4 platforms, various social media: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, podcasts. It's become a industry leader in firearms marketing and advertising. easy thing to do is to tell people we're going to do something. We're going to get the guns off the streets. We're going to have a ban. And it won't accomplish anything. If you're not targeting the people that are committing the violent acts involving firearms, then you're not really doing anything. It's an easy thing to do. And quite frankly, there are people that want it done for various reasons, I suppose. And it's an easy thing to put forward to the public and say we're going to ban some things and that's going to make some changes. It won't make any difference. As a former police officer, I never knew the legal firearm community to be directly involved. If anything, I always knew them to be the most compliant, the finest citizens in the country I've ever encountered have been firearm owners. Right? They're the ones that have to act and conduct themselves in a way that allows them to maintain their license status. These are not the people committing crimes. They know that.
It seems like every single day there's a shooting with a semi-automatic handgun that these people are not legally qualified to own or use, and they're putting lives at risk. And there's kids that they're solving their problems with these guns instead of having rational discussions. What used to be a fist fight and walk away from taking your losses is now a fight on the internet, and it results in gun violence.
And the caliber of guns and the amount are extraordinary compared to even 5-10 years ago. And the age of people using them, it's just mind-boggling and very devastating and very sad.
The time for talking is no more.
Yeah, that's what I've found in the last couple of years since my son was murdered. I've gone to Ottawa, I've gone to sit in Queen's Park, I've spoken to politicians. It's a lot of talking, but no action. And, I'm an action type person. I get my mind set to something, and that's why we've done this group, the Communities for Zero Violence, and we've reached out to a lot of like-minded people, and together we will make a difference in our son's honor.
Really what it's doing is it's targeting legal gun owners, the very people that go through all the necessary steps. It's tantamount to targeting the daily commuter and thinking that he's the guy that steals a car. I mean, a person that gets a license, insures a car properly, takes a safety course, and gets the proper validation sticker for his car isn't going to run out, steal one, and use it in the commission of a crime. They're two completely distinctly different groupings of people, and all the laws that they seem to generate seem to target essentially the commuter, which is ridiculous. And that's why I'm here. I want to see what it is that they're talking about. I'm not seeing effective solutions being put forward. I'm seeing the narrative sort of being given a direction that is misleading people.
Hello, my name is Edward Burtynsky, and I'm a photographic artist. To improve democracy is to make sure that we have solid information about what's happening in our world, that we have good reporting, that the fact finding in our reading material is actually strong, so that when we're reading stuff and we're cross-referencing to make sure that what we're reading is actually what is happening. For me, I'm trying to gain access into all kinds of different places, and when societies are less democratic, when they become more authoritarian, then it's much harder for me to do the work. So I'm working feverishly now because I feel the world is closing up. So I'm trying to do the work I can do at this point, because in 5 years it might be much harder to go into another country to do the work that I do. The thing that I fear about what's happening south of the border is that there's a lot of untruth being told, and how do we not let that creep into our politics? It's going to become a very, very difficult time. And so the kind of out and out lying about what's happening in the world and events, it really does undermine, I think, democracy, and the social media feeds that we have today circumvent normal ways of editing out that kind of voice, and now this technology has jumped over all of these guidelines and all of these things that protect us from mistruths, and they're now being fed directly into the electorate. In Canada, I still feel that I have the rights that are necessary to live my life the way I want. I don't see anything immediately threatening that. It's a place that when people ask me, where in the world would, knowing all the things that you know and all the things that you've seen, where would you live? And I say I live in Toronto and I wouldn't change that.
When Steve Bannon was invited to Toronto last fall, it sparked an entirely different debate than what he'd come to argue. Free speech versus hate speech. That was the question. CPAC contributor Molly Thomas went behind the scenes and into the crowds to see how democracy, populism, and protest collided in Canada.
I'm Molly Thomas outside the Munk Debate in Toronto. These semi-annual forums bring together some of the brightest and most controversial thinkers on the planet. And this one, as you can see, maybe one of the most controversial that there is. Throngs of protesters, hundreds and hundreds of people are here to protest Steve Bannon. He is the alt-right American political strategist known for inflammatory rhetoric and really fueling Donald Trump's rise to power. His harshest critics accuse him of propagating values of neo-Nazism, of propagating values around white supremacy, and inciting hate towards religious and racial minorities across the U.S. So, does Steve Bannon belong in Canada? Are we just giving him a platform, or is this actually about free speech? The resolution at hand tonight, be it resolved, the future of Western politics is populist, not liberal. Steve Bannon will argue for, and David Frum will take against.
Bannon may be despicable. You may like him or not like him. That's up to people, but you've got a very smart guy debating him. If this was Steve Bannon on his own, absolutely protesting. But if you want to quiet voices like Bannon, put very smart, rational people up against him and quiet their voices.
The white supremacists are not welcome here. Steve Bannon is not welcome. Anyone who's attending this event is not welcome.
I don't think that somebody who preaches hatred and white supremacy should be allowed to speak here. It's like, they have to draw the line. I believe in free speech for sure, but it helps to legitimize certain kind of hatred.
Despite the very heavy police presence, you can see the police horses are out. You can see the yellow jackets all the way down there. The front door completely manned by police officers. There is a large line of people that still want to be at this Munk Debate. It is completely sold out. People outside, a lot of Canadians not happy about this debate going on tonight. Do you understand that concern? Were you talking to people before you got here?
Yeah, and I actually told them that I agree with most of what they have to say. But I also believe in free speech, and I think Steve Bannon's ideas will not shine in the light of day. They'll shine in the darkness of the interweb and sort of the dark places where I think creepy people like him hide out.
We've had some protests outside of the hall tonight. We were expecting that. It was anticipated. So it's taking us a little bit longer than expected to seat all of the 2,800 people who've showed up tonight to hear this important debate on the future of populism in the Western world.
How is this one different? Because everyone's talking about it.
Yeah, this is great. This is the dialogue of democracy. We're not about, changing people's opinions. We're about presenting both sides of an issue and having trust, having faith that people can come to their own reasoned views. Whether that changes their mind at the end of tonight about populism, that's kind of beside the point. It's more that we're having the debate.
President Bush, David's...
If she does not stop, she will unfortunately be asked to leave this debate. So, Madame, it is your decision. You can stay or you can go.
Liberal democracy is stronger than it looks because human kindness and decency are stronger than they look. The cruel always think the kind are weak. But they're going to discover that loyalty and patriotism, these are tremendous resources, and they are going to begin to be felt more and more.
The future obviously belongs to populism. It's only going to be defined by, is it left-wing populism or conservative and right-wing populism? Is it about deconstructing the administrative state and opening up the power of capitalism? Or is it going to be about more state intervention? Thank you very much for having us tonight.
I'm Silas Brown, and today I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia, talking to a young Ugandan woman who wants to make a difference and become a leader in her new community.
I'm Neria Atwine, second-year student at St. Mary's University. I'm originally from Uganda. I'm just here to study. My mom encouraged me to come to Canada because she was like, if you graduate, the opportunities there are abundant. I love leadership. I love the youth. I love being a millennial. I love being a part of a group that has different insight on certain issues that are affecting our society today, and just being a part of it gives me the thrill. I'm one of the representatives at iMatter, so recently we developed a resolution and a report card that highlights climate action progress and their plan. We came before the council meeting, and presented our resolution on what HRM still needs to do to improve, the environment quality, air quality, and more or less just pinpointing their weaknesses, but also their strength in terms of, trying to protect HRM, because HRM is quite vulnerable to, climate action extremes. We are the future leaders of tomorrow. We're the ones who are going to face the consequences of the policies that are being set today.
That's all for this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments or question ideas on this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website, www.cpac.ca/outburst. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.